In our personal relationships, the stakes are even higher. Over time, this can lead to learned helplessness. Do you need personal development or wellness support? Email me at tbsatoday@gmail.com. That is tbsatoday@gmail.com. At Think Wellness, we help our clients achieve and maintain health and vitality using alternative wellness strategies. We focus on our clients' physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, financial, and social well-being. Remember to write your questions and comments in the section below and subscribe to our channel. The format of this series is uniquely designed to encourage reflection and introspection, two fundamental and powerful driving forces behind both personal and societal change. Mathematical principles form the foundation of who we are. This affords us the capacity for consistency and predictability. These characteristics, that is, consistency and predictability, are therefore a part of our identity. They speak to who we are. Consistency and predictability are essential for identifying self-defeating and unproductive trends within ourselves. These characteristics help us foster productive habits, facilitate progress towards goals, promote confidence and mental stability, and help us boost our reputation as well.
At our very core are mathematical principles. Mathematical principles afford consistency and predictability. When we engage in activities that undermine consistency, we are literally rewriting our brains to make future consistency even harder to achieve.
Welcome to The Other Dimension, a program that seeks to expand your knowledge, giving you the tools you need to take control of your health and well-being. Our host, Pauline Bell, will guide you through this life-changing journey.
What happens if we are engaged in activities that hinder us from exercising consistency and predictability? Remember, the goal of this exercise is to help us gain a better understanding of who we are so we can improve personal and social efficiency and ensure self-preservation amid social and technological dynamisms. What happens if we are engaged in activities that hinder us from exercising consistency and predictability? Or what happens to us if there is a hindrance to us exercising these capacities? We live in a world characterized by constant stimulation, endless options, and a seductive pull of novelty. Could these be to our detriment? Could these adversely impact the material we are made of? When we engage in activities that disrupt consistency and predictability, we fundamentally alter the way our brains process information and how it forms neural pathways. Our brain is, at its core, a pattern recognition machine that thrives on repetition and predictable sequences. When we consistently act in a predictable context, our brains create strong neural pathways that make the behavior increasingly automatic and effortless. When we engage in erratic, inconsistent activities, constantly switching between tasks, abandoning routines, or introducing excessive variability into our schedules, we prevent these neural pathways from solidifying. Each time we break a pattern or introduce randomness, we essentially force our brain to start the learning process anew. This creates a state of perpetual cognitive load where even simple tasks require significant mental energy because they never become automated. This leads to mental fatigue and decision exhaustion.
When we engage in activities that hinder our ability to maintain consistency and predictability, we restrict ourselves from manifesting who we truly are.
Unpredictability triggers the brain's stress response systems. Our emotional alarm center becomes hyperactive when it cannot anticipate what comes next. This chronic activation floods our system with cortisol and other stress hormones, which over time can impair memory formation, reduce cognitive flexibility, and even physically shrink the hippocampus, which is the region in our brain crucial for learning and memory. So, in essence, by engaging in activities that undermine consistency, we are not just making life more complicated in the moment. We are literally rewiring our brains to make future consistency even harder to achieve. At our very core are mathematical principles. Mathematical principles afford consistency and predictability. When we engage in activities that undermine consistency, we are literally rewiring our brains to make future consistency even harder to achieve. Any activity that limits our ability to activate our capacity for consistency and predictability is robbing us of an aspect of being human.
Any activity that limits our ability to activate our capacity for consistency is robbing us of one aspect of being human.
By nature of who we are, or by nature of what we extended from that which fills space to be, we are inherently social creatures. We flourish when we are connected to others and we struggle in isolation. This is how we are designed. Perhaps nowhere are the consequences of inconsistency more immediately felt than in our relationships with others. In relationships, we rely on predictability to build trust. And trust is the currency upon which all meaningful relationships are built. When we engage in behaviors that make us unpredictable, canceling plans frequently, being unreliable in our commitments, or displaying erratic emotional responses, we systematically erode the foundation of trust that others place in us. This series aims to help us gain a better understanding of ourselves so we can ensure self-preservation and wellness in a world experiencing social and technological dynamism. Consider the workplace. or the work environment for a moment. An employee who consistently delivers quality work on time becomes someone their colleagues and supervisors can depend on. This reliability opens doors to greater responsibility, autonomy, and advancement. Conversely, someone whose performance is erratic, brilliant one week, absent or unfocused the next week, becomes a liability regardless of their peak capabilities. Managers cannot build plans around uncertainty, and teams cannot function effectively when they cannot predict whether a member will fulfill their obligations. In personal relationships, the stakes are even higher. A parent who is inconsistent in their availability, discipline, or emotional presence creates anxiety and insecurity in their children. Developmental psychologists have extensively documented how children need predictable caregiving to develop secure attachment styles and emotional regulation. When parents engage in activities, whether excessive work commitments, substance use, or simply poor time management, when they engage in activities that make them unpredictable, children often develop anxious or avoidant attachment patterns that can affect their relationships throughout life.
At our very core are mathematical principles. Mathematical principles afford consistency and predictability. When we engage in activities that undermine consistency, we are literally rewriting our brains to make future consistency even harder to achieve.
This series aims to help us gain a better understanding of ourselves so we can ensure self-preservation and wellness in a world experiencing social and technological dynamism. Romantic partnerships similarly depend on a foundation of predictability. This doesn't mean relationships should be boring or routine in negative sense. Rather, it means partners need to know they can count on each other. When someone frequently changes plans, breaks promises, or displays inconsistent affection and attention, their partner experiences chronic uncertainty that manifests as anxiety, resentment, and even emotional withdrawal. The relationship becomes a source of stress rather than a source of security, fundamentally undermining the purpose of the relationship.
The quality of our lives, the depth of our relationships, the extent of our achievements, and the degree of our fulfillment all depend fundamentally on our ability to maintain consistency and predictability in the things that matter most.
Even friendships suffer under the weight of inconsistency. Friends who are reliably present, who show up when they say they will, who maintain regular contact, who can be counted on in times of need. These friends form the core of our social support network. Those who engage in activities that make them perpetually unavailable or unreliable gradually find themselves isolated as others stop investing emotional energy in relationships that don't reciprocate with dependability. If you do not know the material something is made of, it is almost impossible to maintain or care for it. The goal of this series is to help us gain a better understanding of who we are, so we can improve personal and social efficiency and ensure self-preservation amid social and technological dynamism.
At our very core are mathematical principles. Mathematical principles afford consistency and predictability. When we engage in activities that undermine consistency, we are literally rewriting our brains to make future consistency even harder to achieve.
In the short term, a single instance of inconsistency might seem inconsequential. Missing one workout, skipping one day of writing, breaking one small commitment. However, these small deviations accumulate, creating exponentially larger gaps between where we are and where we could have been. In his work on atomic habits, James Clear illustrates this principle with mathematical precision. If you improve by just 1% each day, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year due to the compound effect. Conversely, if you decline by 1% each day, you'll decline nearly to zero. The mathematics of consistency are unforgiving. Small actions repeated consistently over time produce remarkable results, while inconsistency, even if occasionally punctuated by bursts of intense efforts, produces mediocrity at best. At our very core, we are creatures with capacity for consistency and predictability. Living in alignment with who we truly are means exercising consistency and predictability. To constantly exercise our capacity for consistency and predictability, we must be cognizant of activities that may hinder it. When we engage in activities that actively disrupt consistency, excessive social media use, binge watching television, or maintaining chaotic schedules, we are not simply failing to make progress. We are living a life that is not in alignment with who we truly are. This may cause undue stress and ill health, among other things. Each instance of inconsistency increases the likelihood of the next one. This is so because we fail to build the neural pathways and environmental structures that support consistent behavior. We enter a negative spiral where inconsistency breeds more inconsistency, and the gap between our current state and our potential widens with each passing day. Since our very foundation is rooted in mathematical principles, namely consistency and predictability in this session, engaging in activities that undermine them erodes our sense of identity. When our actions are inconsistent and unpredictable, we struggle to form a coherent sense of self, leading to identity confusion and a fragmented self-concept.
Any activity that limits our ability to activate our capacity for consistency is robbing us of one aspect of being human.
Unpredictability in our own lives creates chronic state of cognitive dissonance. We hold certain values and aspirations. We want to be healthy, We want to be successful, we want to be reliable, and we want to be accomplished. Yet our actions consistently contradict them. This gap between our ideal self and our actual behavior creates psychological tension that manifests as guilt, shame, and self-criticism. Over time, this can lead to learned helplessness, where we come to believe that our actions don't matter because we've repeatedly failed to follow through on our intentions. Consistent routines and predictable patterns provide a sense of stability and control that buffers against stress and anxiety. When we engage in activities that disrupt these patterns, whether through poor time management, substance use, or simply chaotic living, we remove this protective buffer. Life feels more overwhelming because we lack the anchoring effect of reliable routines. Small stressors, therefore, feel larger because we're already operating from a baseline of instability.
Consistent routines and predictable patterns provide a sense of stability and control that buffers against stress and anxiety. When we engage in activities that disrupt these patterns, we remove this protective buffer.
Inconsistency sometimes leads to a phenomenon known as temporal discounting, where we consistently prioritize immediate gratification over long-term benefits. When we lack the discipline to maintain consistent behaviors, we become increasingly oriented towards the present moment. We make decisions that feel good right here and now, but undermine our future well-being. This creates a vicious cycle. Inconsistency leads to poor decisions, which leads to worse outcomes, which leads to more stress, which makes consistency even harder to maintain.
Remember who you are. Remember.
The quality of our lives, the depth of our relationships, the extent of our achievements, and the degree of our fulfillment all depend fundamentally on our ability to maintain consistency and predictability in the things that matter most.
The original substance speaks the language of mathematics. It is the mathematical principles that enable the original substance to demonstrate predictability and consistency. Our very foundation is rooted in mathematical principles. Mathematical principles afford us consistency and predictability. When we engage in activities that hinder our ability to maintain consistency and predictability, we hinder ourselves from manifesting who we truly are. These activities must be considered as damaging to our true nature. In short, they limit our scope to manifest what it means to be truly human. Engaging in inconsistent and unpredictable behaviors rewire our brains, making future consistency and predictability harder to achieve. When our actions are inconsistent and unpredictable, we struggle to form a coherent sense of self, leading to identity confusion and a fragmented self-concept.
Remember who you are. Remember.
When we engage in activities that hinder our ability to maintain consistency and predictability, we restrict ourselves from manifesting who we truly are.